So I think that applause is for the India team and people from Mexico and Belize who helped that. So we are really grateful, and yeah, we are of course very sorry for that that event, and but we are also happy that now it seems everybody who's still there is going to be released. All right, so let's start with our conference. We're going to start with a small opening ceremony, which is called the Lightening of the Light, and it's going to take place here. So I'm inviting our dignitaries to join us here in front. That was a very beautiful start of our conference. And now we're going to continue with something cultural before we start with talking about finance issues. We're going to hear a short song from Tamil Nadu. So please listen, everybody. And, and please rise for this song. Thank you.
நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் மதனமென திகழ்வரத கண்டமிதில் எக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை திறம் வியந்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
Thank you, and it's great to be here in Tamil Nadu, which is a state that has so many natural and cultural treasures. Some of them are around our area, so we're in a very good location. So we're going to start now with a warm welcome on behalf of all of us, and I would like to request Ms. Midori Paxton. She's the Global Head of Biodiversity and Ecosystems for UNIP-JEF, also responsible for BIOFIN, to say a few words of welcome for all our guests. Midori, over to you.
Both of them. Thank you, Yano. Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and warmest welcome to all of you from the UNDP team. It's so wonderful to have gathered here, all of us, from the 36 BIOFIN countries. And I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of India for hosting this third Global BIOFIN Conference. And we are also extremely privileged to have the presence of honorable ministers, joint secretary, the distinguished members of Congress, private sector representatives, BIOFIN donors, distinguished specialists and directors, and the UN resident coordinator in India. And also, of course, the UNDP country office colleagues, and also BIOFIN country teams. So as part of my welcome remarks, I'd like to share with you a little bit of my thinking about BIOFIN, but putting that in a bit of global and historic context. So let us turn the clock back a little bit. When some of our, or many of our grandparents, or in some cases, great-grandparents or great-great-great-grandparents were born around 1900, the world was a very, very different place. The population was only 1 billion, and the life expectancy on average was around 40, and 65% of the world lived in poverty. And yes, we have made a great strides over the last 100 years, and I think life expectancy is over, on average, over 70 years old, and I'm always surprised to know that we have gained more in terms of life expectancy over the last 4 generations compared to over the last 8,000 generations. And since 1990, we have been able to lift more than 1 billion people out of poverty. But the gains of the 20th century have come at the expense of the environment. And these global reports attest to the fact. Every year, 20,000 elephants are lost to poaching. We lose 18 million hectares of forest and estimated 50,000 species. We are in the midst of 6 mass extinction. And also by 2030, I think you are now used to these statistics, we may be living in a world where there's more plastic than fish in the ocean. So in 1900, as I said, there was 1 billion of us. And today, 7.6 billion. And by 2030, there will be well over 8 billion. And we know if we continue business as usual scenario, by then, by 2030, half of the population will be living in an area with severe water stress, including 250 million people in Africa. And of course, the climate change is exacerbating our problem, and the food demand is going to rise by 50%. So there are lots of issues we are facing. And it is against this backdrop that the world agreed in 2015 on the Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. I think it's really an astonishing achievement of the humanity that with all the differences we have between nations and also within nations, that the world came to agree on this noble vision of leaving no one behind, and also recognizing that the three dimensions of sustainable development, economic, social, and environment, has to be addressed in a very integrated fashion through these 17 sustainable development goals. And recently we conducted a quick assessment looking at nature's contributions to SDGs and their targets. And this diagram is the result of the assessment. So you can see in the middle 17 SDGs, and those, each cell in the outer ring represents a target. So what this is telling us is that we need to nurture nature to be able to achieve these goals, because targets of almost all the SDGs can only be achieved if we harness nature's power to find solutions. So if you take hunger, poverty, health, water, jobs, climate, life below and above water, challenges associated with these goals cannot be solved without safeguarding what nature so generously offers us. We need forests to provide water to cities. We need plants and genetic materials for medicines. And we need good soil and pollinators for agriculture. And we need marine biodiversity to sustain tens of millions of jobs and livelihoods. And in India, tiger tourism and its spin-off, from only 6 tiger reserves alone, generate $1.3 billion to the economy. So my thesis is that biodiversity financing is about financing for the future of humanity. And it is an insurance for our safety and prosperity. And it is about investing in nature-based solutions for sustainable development. And through BIOFIN project in 2012, we initiated a global movement to make the necessary mindset shift. A mindset shift to recognize nature's values and power and invest enough to safeguard nature, which has been our strongest but most silent ally. And we have many encouraging progress and results from different countries, which you will hear about in the next 3 days. And with the second phase of BIOFIN starting this year, I hope that we will collectively, together with you, make an even further, even greater leap towards the 2030 vision, our common vision. Last time I was in India, 2 years ago, attending the 3rd Ministerial Conference of Tiger Range countries. And Prime Minister Modi made these remarks, which is resonating in my mind, so I'd like to share with you. So he said, "Friends, species belonging to the animal kingdom usually do not act to their disadvantage. However, human beings are an exception. So I would say it is about time we stop acting to our disadvantage. So again, welcome to all to the third BIOFIN Global Conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Midor. And I think it's great you mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goals, because BIOFIN is definitely a model that you can roll out to look at financing of the biodiversity-related SDGs, while also looking at impacts of other SDGs. So we're going to start now with the more formal opening segment. We're going to have different countries delivering their opening remarks. We have received regrets from the Minister of Environment from India, Mr. Harsh Vardhan. But in his place, Dr. Sujata Arora will highlight a brief video from him and say a few words. And I would like to introduce Ms. Arora as an advisor to the ministry, CBD focal point, but especially also our own BIOFIN focal point overseeing the work in India. So welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to welcome you all on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. Our Minister, Dr. Harsh Vardhan, who was scheduled to be present here today and address you all, unfortunately has not been able to come here because of some urgent parliament-related work. Our sincere apologies for the same. However, the Minister has recorded a video message for you, which we would now play. Can we have the video message?
Dear friends, it gives me immense pleasure to address you at the inaugural session of the third BIOFIN Global Conference. It is an honor for India to host this important meeting in Mamallapuram. At the outset, I extend a warm welcome to the ministers and delegates from the 30 BIOFIN countries participating in this workshop. The world today is facing multiple challenges, such as halting biodiversity loss, addressing climate change, reducing desertification and land degradation, disaster risk reduction, and meeting sustainable developmental goals. Biodiversity and ecosystem services have the potential to deliver multiple benefits that can help us to address these challenges. The continuing loss of biodiversity, largely because of human activities, including consumptive lifestyles, is a matter of concern. This trend, if unchecked, could endanger environmental sustainability and economic prosperity as well. Unlike the deterioration of the physical environment, which can be halted and reversed, the loss of biological diversity is a problem far more complex and largely irreversible. If we save the living environment of Earth, we would also save the physical non-living environment, because each depends on the other. As a recognized mega-diverse country, rich in biodiversity, where millions of local people depend on ecosystems and their services for their livelihoods, conservation of biodiversity is a priority for India. With only 2.4% of the world's land area, India harbors 7 to 8% of the recorded species diversity, while supporting nearly 18% of the human population. Despite the tremendous biotic pressure, India is one of the few countries of the world where forest cover is on the rise. Further, India has, through its intended nationally determined contribution under UNFCCC voluntarily committed to creating an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. India recognizes the important role that coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, corals, salt marsh, etc. play in protecting coastal communities from climate change impacts such as sea level rise, and has taken steps including regulatory measures to conserve coastal ecosystems. The number of protected areas in the country has also grown steadily. India has 2/3 of the population of wild tigers of the world in its 50 tiger reserves. As a party to the Convention on Biological Diversity, India is committed to achieving its objectives. India has surpassed the global Aichi target of 17% of terrestrial area-based conservation. Similarly, India has been instrumental in achieving the target of operationalization of the CBD's Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing through national legislation. Having hosted COP11 to the CBD in 2012, India is considered amongst the leaders in implementing this convention and Nagoya Protocol. For strengthening the measures for biodiversity conservation, estimation of biodiversity funding is very crucial and at the same time quite challenging. In this context, I would like to appreciate the efforts taken by UNDP to conceptualize and implement the Global BIOFIN program. My ministry, in collaboration with National Biodiversity Authority, is implementing the global project on Biodiversity Finance Initiative in India. I am happy to note that the Global BIOFIN team, which recently visited India to review progress under the project, has commended the high level of ownership of the Government of India, as well as the involvement of diverse technical expertise in the BIOFIN India project. The third Global BIOFIN Conference is especially significant as it is being held at a crucial stage of nearing the completion of Phase 1 of BIOFIN project, which would lay the basis for activities and funding for the proposed Phase 2 of the program. I hope that this conference will facilitate experience sharing and technical discussions on results from BIOFIN implementation and explore opportunities for biodiversity finance solutions. I wish you meaningful deliberations in the 3-day conference. I hope that you will be able to take some time out from your busy schedules in these 3 days to experience the splendor of this coastal resort town, which is known for its group of temples and religious monuments built in the 7th and the 8th centuries and recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, and I just would like to highlight that we're really grateful for the leadership of the ministry, but actually numerous organizations in India on BIOFIN. It's a very unique model where they didn't hire a single expert, but everything is done by the government organizations themselves and with very great results. So this is something we really appreciate. I would like to call now Ms. Josephine Ramirez Sato, who is a legislator of the Philippine Congress, representing the Lone District of Occidental Mindoro, which is an island province in the Philippines. and she's a strong advocate for good legislation on biodiversity and biodiversity finance in the country. Please, Ms. Sato.
Let me put this down. Okay. Magandang... Yeah, no. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Good morning, everyone. I am very honored and very happy to be here with you today. I bring the best wishes and the warm greetings from my country and my people. My country, the Philippines, is among the 17 mega-diverse countries of the world. We host more than 52,000 known species, with more than 50% of our plants and animals classified as unique. On a per-unit basis, the Philippines probably share more diversity of life than any other country in the planet. Despite of all these, and maybe because of these, my country is the 10th most threatened biodiversity hotspot in the world. That is according to the sustainability writer Natalie Mayer. Our forest cover is dwindling. Our coastal marine and freshwater systems are being degraded, and our endemic species are endangered. We are, in theory, a country of plenty. Yet most of our people live in scarcity. Our communities have yet to share in the benefits of Philippine genetic resources, in no small part because of irresponsible and unfair exploitation of these resources. I firmly believe that the problems facing Philippine biodiversity mirror the global crisis that we all face. To be sure, our community of nations has taken steps to arrest the degradation, each in our own way and in our own countries. We have had successes in broadening the extent and coverage of protected areas. We have instituted sustainable forest management, policies on invasive alien species, and biodiversity-related aid. But still, more needs to be done to further protect biodiversity, sustainably manage natural resources, and equitably share in the benefits they offer. By more, I am referring to the scale of concerted positive actions that we can all take. We all live in this one interconnected earth. We know that what happens in one part of the globe can potentially affect us all. Bad practice in one small area can have a significant impact on the other side of the world. Therefore, we can no longer afford to work in silos, merely tending on our own backyard without regard for anyone else. Biodiversity protection is not an elitist cause, nor sentimental harking back of times past, as critics would have us believe. We all know that the negative effects of diminishing biological resources is most acutely felt by the poorest amongst us and permeates into the lives of all sectors and classes of society. As former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, saving our planet lifting people out of poverty, advancing economic growth. These are one and the same fight. 26 years ago, 196 countries ratified the Convention on Biological Diversity, or what we call the CBD, and sounded the alarm on biological diversity loss, unsustainable use of biodiversity resources, and inequitable sharing of genetic wealth. In 2002, world leaders committed to significant reduction in the rate of biodiversity loss by the year 2010. In 2010, most indicators of the state biodiversity, such as species population trends, extinction risk, habitat condition, and community composition, showed declines. But indicators of pressures on biodiversity, including resource consumption, invasive alien species, nitrogen pollution, and climate change impacts, showed increases. We can therefore say that globally, the rate of biodiversity loss does not appear to be slowing down. Thus, at the 10th Conference of Parties of the CBD in 2010, the United Nations declared a period of 2011 to 2020 as the United Nations Decade on Biodiversity. At that conference, 5 overarching goals were laid down, namely, addressing biodiversity loss, reducing pressures on biodiversity, safeguarding ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity, enhancing benefits for all from biodiversity and ecosystem services, and finally, ensuring participatory planning, knowledge management, and capacity building. Towards this end, I am here offering a concept that is rooted in a time-honored tradition in Philippine rural villages, where an entire community pitches in to help a family literally move their home from one place to another. We call this bayanihan. Bayani, the Philippine word for hero, is the root word of bayanihan. It is therefore pure and simple collective heroism. As what you see in the photo, the men who carry the nipa hut on their shoulders are bound by one objective of bringing the fragile nipa hut from one place to another without causing any damage. This is only possible if their every step and every movement is coordinated. This is only possible if the responsibilities are clearly understood by each and every one of them. This same spirit of bayanihan is exactly what we want to serve as model for our whole of government approach to financing biodiversity conservation. During the 3rd BIOFIN Regional Workshop in Kazakhstan last April 2017, I already shared the concept of bayanihan and how it served as an inspiration for my country's whole of government approach to financing biodiversity. As the lead advocate of BIOFIN Philippines in the Philippine Congress, I am proud to report that this same approach of bayanihan has achieved significant progress barely a year after the Kazakhstan conference. First, biodiversity conservation has been included in the 2017 to 2022 Philippine Development Plan through the adoption of a Philippine Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan that instills the bayanihan spirit in national executive government agencies, the legislature, non-government organizations, and BIOFIN Philippines. We now have a clear and coherent roadmap for strengthening and expanding protected area management, improving access and benefit sharing of genetic resources, and ensuring sustainability of our ecosystem services. Second, the House of Representatives of the Philippine Congress has recently passed my bill to expand the National Integrated Protected Area System of the Philippines, which we call the ENIPAS. We see this as a milestone legislation for Philippine biodiversity on the grounds that ENIPAS increases the number of protected areas from current 13 to 107, covering 3.5 million hectares, or 10% of our country's total land area. It enhances, for example, the protection and conservation programs for the endangered water buffalo we call the tamaraw, which can only be found in my island province of Mindoro and nowhere else. It protects the diverse marine biodiversity of Apo Reef, the pink coralline sand of the Great Santa Cruz Island in Zamboanga, and the Turtle Islands Marine Sanctuary and Tawi-Tawi, and many more unique marine and other species in the Philippines. Importantly, the bill increases the annual budget allocations from 65 million pesos annually to 535 million per year, representing a rise in an annual allocation by 823%. This bill likewise expands the scope of prohibited acts and imposes stiffer fines and longer prison terms for violators. It ensures full accountability of public officials as it criminalizes non-compliance and provides for public officials perpetual disqualification from public office. The ENIPAS is awaiting the signature of our President, President Rodrigo Duterte, to finally become a law. This is bayanihan for biodiversity in action. The executive providing the overall management, the legislature enacting sound policies and appropriating budgets, local governments providing frontline enforcement, and communities exercising active citizenship as partners. Third, as we employed bayanihan in expanding Philippine protected areas, we again used the whole of government approach to strengthen national policy on fair access and equitable sharing of Philippine genetic resources and traditional knowledge and practices. We have had enough of many foreign companies appropriating for themselves the benefits derived from our genetic resources. Just to name a few, YSL, or Yves Saint Laurent, has patented an oil extract from Philippine flower called ilang-ilang. Eli Lilly appropriated rights to the Filipino-discovered bacteria that led to the development of antibiotic erythromycin, and the international patent for Philippine sea snail, which is a source of an active ingredient in a painkiller 1,000 times more powerful than morphine. We say enough of this piracy of our genetic resources. Thus, The Office of the President is in the process of reviewing and finalizing an executive order creating an interagency committee on genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge towards effective mobilization of and coordination among national government agencies. In addition, the Philippine Congress is deliberating on our bill that ensures access and benefit sharing of Philippine genetic resources. Apart from ensuring fairness, it is expected to pave the way for economic development in our local areas. It is expected to pave the way for local involvement and income for individuals, businesses, communities, and even mobilize resources for government biodiversity conservation programs. And fourth, to further address the financing gap, BIOFIN Philippines and this representation again teamed up and filed a bill to allow the use of part of the government's share from the Malampaya Deepwater Gas-to-Power project to finance biodiversity programs and projects. As of September 2017, the Malampaya Fund stands at almost $3.6 billion. Our bill has been discussed in the Committee on Energy and was referred to a technical working group for public hearing and consultation. Again, we are very confident that this bill will pass and become a law this year. These developments, all within a year following the Regional BIOFIN Conference, clearly demonstrate that bayanihan works in the Philippines. Today, I humbly advance bayanihan from a country-specific paradigm to a global approach for biodiversity conservation. One planet, shared resources, shared responsibility. In the coming days, as we reflect, debate, agree, and decide on actions for biodiversity financing, let us improve, crowdsource, and even syndicate the bayanihan concept. We remain positive that a bayanihan for biodiversity can work on a global scale, especially in the hands of leaders like you present here today, policymakers, decision makers, managers, and influencers. We are the stewards of Earth for our children and our children's children. We may have many different plans, from Plan A to Plan Z, but let us all be reminded there is no Planet B. We should, as Sidney Sheldon once said, try to leave the Earth a better place than when we arrived. One planet, that's all we've got. We can share resources, and we should share responsibility. I say we push further and include shared accountability towards a real global bayanihan for biodiversity. To end, let me borrow two lines that really struck me for being simple but powerful messages. The first is from cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead, who said, "We won't have any society if we destroy the environment." And the second is from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who said, "The most patriotic thing you can do is to take care of the environment and try to live sustainably." So to the patriots here present today, let us take on these challenges. Let us put on our shoulders the fragile state of biodiversity protection and conservation and bring it to a better, stronger, and viable state. By doing so, we can prove to ourselves, to our children and our children's children, that you and I can become heroes of our own time. Maraming salamat po. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sata. And it's very impressive to hear the budget increase that you've managed to achieve in the Philippines for the protected area system. I'm sure that was very inspiring for all of you, and the Philippines definitely is also a very inclusive country in terms of the BIOFIN model. So thank you very much for all that. I would like to now call on Mr. Yuri Afanasyev, the resident coordinator and resident representative of UN and UNDP in India, to speak on behalf of the United Nations.
Thank you, Anna. Honorable representatives of my host country and the Indian government, bienvenido amigos de América Latina. Welcome to our friends from Asia and Africa. Добро пожаловать, друзья из Казахстана, Киргизстана, Грузии. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak in front of you today. Sorry, by the way, as the co-organizers together with the Indian government of this event for the immigration snafu in the airport. Our best goes to the people who apparently are now being released and let through, and they will be joining us shortly. But again, sorry to those delegations that experienced this not mild inconvenience. Some people were stuck in the airport since midnight last night. So we take the blame as the co-organizers, whatever the issues were with immigration. I also understand that this is not really a challenge for you, because the BIOFIN group is a bit like a modern-day cult, I understand. And you all gather in these secret places around the world once in a while and devise devious policies about how to save our planet. I actually liked very much the concept of Planet B, because I think our leader in BIOFIN, when she showed the SDG wheel with the influences that biodiversity has on every SDG, used a highly technical approach to that schematic. I actually like the Planet B one much better. We don't have a planet, we don't have the SDGs. So that is as simple as that. I also remember, and many of you may, especially those from the UN system here in the room, the words of the Secretary General on the occasion when the SDGs were signed. He said one very, very simple thing, that we are the first generation that can end poverty, and we are the last generation that can save the planet. And I think as more and more scientific analysis is coming out about the state of our biodiversity, about the loss of ecosystems and the melting of the ice caps and changing of the climate, I think that second part of his statement is becoming more and more real. I think the difference compared to almost 30 years ago, when the Rio Conventions were signed and adopted, and compared to any other period in our history, unfortunately today we're coming against a hard deadline. A deadline beyond which, as somebody just said in the opening remarks, the recovery of ecosystems and biodiversity will be impossible, because the process will be irreversible. I think the SDGs do offer a comprehensive framework. But how we apply good practices, behavioral change, and more importantly, where we find money to do all this, are really the questions on the table of this three-day gathering. But the whole government approach and the new approach to finance development, especially in the South, gives us a mild dose of optimism that something can, will, and should be done in the coming years to change the trend. We firmly believe in the United Nations that it is gatherings like this, what we traditionally call South-South cooperation, is actually the platform of the future, where countries that can easily relate to each other, understand each other's needs, but also appreciate each other's obstacles and restrictions can get together and devise innovative solutions and mechanisms to change things for the better. I think it is time for our member states to start raising, including in the UN and between themselves, the issues of how to make the instruments work better. I know from the 3 Undersecretary Generals who lead the 3 Rio Conventions, and some of them actually will be here in Delhi next week because we are inaugurating with the Indian government the International Solar Alliance on the 11th. I know they are starting to raise questions about how some of the financial instruments, whether it's GEF, GCF, the LDN fund, and other new and emerging funds can actually work together to address biodiversity protection and other climate change challenges in an integrated way. I know here in the room we have distinguished ministers, deputy ministers, other important and senior officials from member states. Please take that under consideration. Please start to raise these issues not only with your governments, but regionally and hopefully at the level of the UN. So this integration of financial instruments starts taking place, and then it leverages also the resources that can be obtained from the markets and from elsewhere. Now, I think in the minister's address, he very clearly stated the position of India and also the challenges that India has. I will not repeat them and go through them again. Sufficient for me to say that there is a clear political commitment that I see day in and day out from a country the size and importance of India. To remind our audience that India accounts for roughly 50% of the SDG agenda. Depending on kind of which goal you look at, it's between 30 to 60%. So my host country is not an insignificant player in this debate, and I applaud them for hosting this event, but also for extending pretty ambitious commitments both to the Paris Agreement, increasingly on the SDGs, and certainly on the issue on our table today. It is gratifying to see and to hear and to know that the law that India passed a while ago on protected areas, but also its effort on reforestation and biodiversity protection has led to some great results. I'm sure some of them will be discussed and showcased during these 3 days. And yes, today is an important day. Last year, according to the accounts that came in, I think the minister mentioned it briefly in his address to you, India recorded a 1% loss in forested area. And the Prime Minister insists this is just the beginning. We actually were with Prime Minister Modi last week discussing issues of environment and biodiversity protection and clean energy and the whole green agenda. And I think his and the government's commitment is unmistakable. As a matter of fact, to those in the audience who belong to the United Nations, I'm ready to say that literally these days and next week we will be discussing a strategic partnership between India and the United Nations on climate change, urbanization, and innovation. And certainly biodiversity and adaptation and mitigation is squarely on the agenda. The ministry and the minister are very, very supportive. What shape that partnership takes to be defined in weeks and months to come, but I think the actual behavior of my host country is there on the table, and I'm quite proud to comment on that. Last but not least, why India can also be important to the rest of you in the South is because of the unique combination of what India represents today. The statistics are there. By 2030, it will be the most populous country in the world. It will be the most densely populated country and the youngest country in the world. But it will also likely to be either the number 1 or the number 2 economic power in the world by mid-century. So the impact that India has on our ecosystem, but also the innovations and the solution that India brings to our debate on biodiversity, are certainly not trivial. But the combination of the largest democracy in the world, an increasingly liberal economy, a consultative society, and a culture and a combination of diverse religions and peoples who actually understand the interdependence of nature and man and the complexity of the circle of life, I think lends itself to the possibility that the development solutions of tomorrow are being born in India today. On a more anecdotal level, I think the state of, was it Madhya Pradesh, that now is in the Guinness Book of Records for the biggest reforestation event in human history, where millions and millions of trees were planted in literally, what was it? It wasn't a day, but it was a week or something like that. So India is also putting itself in the Guinness Book of Records. But on a serious note, I think the ability of the Indian government to find innovative solutions and incentives where quite a few of our challenges are being sought through blended finance, through increasing attraction of private capital. And I think you will hear a keynote address from our friend and partner and colleague here in India from Yes Bank in a minute, possibly giving some examples and ideas of how we can move forward, but lends itself to the question and to the answer that yes, private resources can be brought to bear to make a difference. As an example, we are working with manufacturers in the textile industry right now to change how supply chains work in the northeast of India, in the specifically biodiverse and fragile states neighboring the Himalayas and partially in the Himalayas. And the answers are coming. The industry increasingly is concerned by not only its image, but on the positive note, how it can make a positive difference in its country's future, in the lives and livelihoods of its citizens, and how supply chains, manufacturing behavior, other business practices can contribute not just through CSR. This is not a CSR discussion, but actually how to make the core of business models sustainable and how to do no harm. Let me stop with my introductory remarks here. Welcome you again all to India. Please enjoy not only the event, but as the Minister rightly said, also the cultural, natural, and tourist sites here close by in Tamil Nadu. And welcome and good luck to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would like to add to the apology just mentioned, also a big apology on behalf of the Global BIOFIN team. We do feel responsible for also your travel, and we regret that there's so many people who had inconveniences. And fortunately, of course, we soon hope to welcome those people that were held up. I'm also happy that we decided jointly we're going to focus only on Planet A. So with BIOFIN, it's decided now only Planet A, so our scope is quite limited. That's good. So now I would like to welcome Dr. Meena Kumari, from the chairperson from the National Biodiversity Authority, who are based here in Chennai. So it's a kind of home game for them, and we are very proud to have them as one of our partners in BIOFIN for India. Please.
Thank you, Ono. Dignitaries on the dais, Mr. Tarcisio, Ms. Midori, Ms. Josephine, Ms. Jean, Mr. Yuri, Coordinator UNDP India, Dr. Sujata Arora, Advisor Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, distinguished participants from BIOFIN member countries and delegates, BIOFIN practitioners from India, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege and honor for our country that we are hosting the third BIOFIN conference that has the gathering of 30 BIOFIN countries. I extend a hearty welcome to you all to India and to Chennai, the capital and the largest city of the state of Tamil Nadu. You are in Mahabalipuram, an ancient historic town and a bustling seaport in the first millennium, now turned a beachside tourism center with a group of Tamil monuments declared as UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is one of the most visited towns in South India. You will be happy to note that the headquarters of the National Biodiversity Authority, which is established to implement the provisions of the Biological Diversity Act, is located in Chennai. It's a matter of pride that this important conference is being held here. The first Global BIOFIN Conference was held in Slovakia in the year 2014, and the second conference in Mexico in 2016. The present meeting, the third global conference, as you may be aware that India, at the invitation of UNDP, joined the BIOFIN initiative in the year 2015. Currently, BIOFIN initiative in India is in its third and this is the final year of implementation of phase 1 of the project. Phase 1 ends in December 2018, and so the conference is an important event to share experiences and learnings from 30 countries. BIOFIN process in India has generated important learnings for all the stakeholders through every BIOFIN step, such as the program and institutional review, biodiversity expenditure review, financial needs assessment, and as we move along, we will share our experiences and findings with a larger audience within the country to sensitize them about the need for more finance and funding for the biodiversity conservation and its sustainable use. BIOFIN in India is being implemented by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, hosted by the National Biodiversity Authority, working with two institutions, that is, one is the Wildlife Institute of India and the other, the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. As one can see from the participating institutions that in India, there is a complete government ownership for the project. I must also admit that there are challenges in implementing BIOFIN in India. Biodiversity management in India and the associated financing is truly an intersectoral subject, with sectoral initiatives on biodiversity conservation being undertaken by several ministries and departments of Government of India. And hence, there were methodological challenges for biodiversity expenditure review and financial needs assessment. As we discussed, we are well aware that there are many critical areas of biodiversity conservation that requires a lot of financing. The in situ conservation covering our entire protected area in forest, coastal and marine ecosystems is one such example. The number of schemes formulated and finance allocated for in situ conservation in the country needs a revamping, and there are several areas of National Biodiversity Action Plan that requires drastic scaling up of financing. Many positive examples are there on proactive ODA funding for biodiversity conservation, and in this regard, the Tamil Nadu Biodiversity Conservation and Greening Project, funded by Japan International Cooperation Agency to the tune of rupees 686 crores, is one such example. BIOFIN activities in India have picked up momentum in 2017 with first 3 steps of the BIOFIN processes, such as national driven appraisal program and institutional review, biodiversity expenditure review, and the financial needs assessment for implementing the National Biodiversity Action Plan and to achieve the national biodiversity targets. It was finalized at the initial results obtained through the project. The first phase of BIOFIN promises useful results. As a mega biodiverse country, India has special need for the preparation of a comprehensive biodiversity financing plan and a long-term resources mobilization strategy to ensure that natural assets are maintained so that they may continue to provide the resources and environmental services to the people who directly depend on it. Towards this, an international BIOFIN workshop was organized on international and novel economic instruments for biodiversity conservation at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, over 2 days during 17 to 18 November last year. We hope to take forward the learnings from the conference also. As you are in Chennai, please don't forget to capture a glimpse of the ancient monuments and sculptures which depict the rich cultural heritage of India in and around Mahabalipuram, and also the overwhelming hospitality of India and traditional Indian cuisine. You are right here at the longest beach in Asia, only place in the world where archaeological ruins spill so dramatically on the shore, rimmed with swaying palms, cool breeze, ivory sand kissed by gentle waves, which makes this spot an enchanting tropical paradise. I wish the global conference a great success. Once again, I welcome you all, and like most of you, I look forward to the deliberations and discussions to come up with resolutions which will be taken forward by the partner countries. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure everybody's going to take your last comment to heart and look at the past here to be inspired to think about the future, and while enjoying some delicious food from the region. Thank you very much. I would like to now call on Ms. Jean Kapata, Minister of Lands and Natural Resources of Zambia, who came all the way here, and she's going to share some opening remarks on behalf of Zambia.
Good morning, everyone. Master of Ceremonies, this morning, allow me to recognize His Excellency Dr. Harsh Vardhan, Minister of Environment, Forests, and Climate Change of India, represented by Mrs. Arora. Your Excellency Tarcisio Granizo, Minister of Environment for the Republic of Ecuador. Your Excellency, Mr. Yuri Afanasiev, UNDP Resident Coordinator for India. Your Excellency, Ms. Josephine Sato, Congresswoman from the Philippines. Dr. B. Minakumari, the Chairperson for the National Biodiversity Authority for India. Mrs. Namita Vikas, Chief Sustainability Officer, Yes Bank of India, Your Excellencies, other ministers that are present here, head of delegations, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, first of all, let me thank you, and through you to the people of India, and Chennai in particular, for the warm hospitality that has been granted to us since we arrived with my delegation and the delegation from the southern region of Africa. I also wish to thank the United Nations Development Program and the Biodiversity Finance Initiative Global Team for the excellent arrangement for the conference. I wish to share with you the situation in my country regarding biodiversity conservation, as well as the challenges that we are facing in this regard. You may wish to know that Zambia is endowed with abundant natural resources and rich biodiversity as reflected in the wetlands, rivers, vegetation, and wildlife, as well as agro-biodiversity. These are conserved in our 480 forests, reserves, 20 national parks, as well as other conservation areas such as ranches, fisheries, and national heritage sites. About 40% of the country's total surface area is dedicated to conservation. We are committed to protect our natural resources and ensure that future generations enjoy the same value we currently derive from them. However, like any other country, we are facing challenges in our conservation efforts. For example, we have to contend with overharvesting of these natural resources, such as forests, wildlife, and fish, to mention a few. In addition, we have capacity challenges in enforcing the laws that have to put in place. This is largely due to low staffing levels in the institutions managing our natural resources, coupled with inadequate modern equipment, especially the monitoring natural resources use. Inadequate financial resources for institutions involved in biodiversity, largely due to the limited resource envelope and competing needs in the country, means that these institutions operate below their expected potential. Your Excellency, despite these challenges, it's not all doom and gloom in our conservation efforts in the country. We have a number of successes stories which are encouraging us to work even harder. For example, in the wildlife sector, working with communities through community resource boards in promoting conservation has proved instrumental in reducing illegal wildlife hunting. This has also improved household incomes as revenue generated is shared between government and communities. In addition, our resolve to promote planting of trees is gradually taking root, with a target of planting 1 million trees in the country for this year. This was launched by the Vice President of our government, demonstrating the priority that the government has attached to the program. The response countrywide has been encouraging, and we are confident that we shall reach our target this year. As I conclude my remarks, Your Excellency, I wish to underscore the importance of the BIOFIN process in the country. As I highlighted earlier in my remarks, financing is one of the challenges that we have faced in conserving our biodiversity, and therefore, the solution being advanced in this process, we are encouraged that the BIOFIN process, especially the financing solution being recommended, will help us address some of these challenges and sustain our ongoing conservation efforts. Your Excellency, once again, I wish to thank you for the excellent arrangements and the opportunity to address this august House. I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and it's amazing to see the commitment to expand forest and plant trees of the countries present here, Zambia and India and others. So now let's move to a country which has also a lot of rainforest. I'm very proud to welcome Mr. Tarcisio Granizo, the Minister of Environment of Ecuador, to give the final opening remarks of this opening segment.
Thank you. Just to change a little bit the format, I will speak in Spanish. Saludos fraternos, distinguidos ministros, ministras, jefes de Estado, jefes de delegaciones, perdón, no hay jefes de Estado. Gratitud y un saludo cordial al pueblo y gobierno de la India por hospedar este evento. Felices de estar en este bello país, particularmente aquí en Mahabalipuram. El Ecuador es el primer país en reconocer los derechos de la naturaleza en su Constitución y considerar a la biodiversidad como un recurso estratégico. Nosotros implementamos lo que llamamos el buen vivir como una alternativa al concepto tradicional de desarrollo, lo cual implica un modelo que busca un balance mejor entre la naturaleza y el ser humano, un modelo donde la mejor estrategia para erradicar la pobreza pasa por la eliminación de las asimetrías sociales, económicas, ambientales y culturales, y esto se refleja en nuestro Plan Nacional de Desarrollo, que está alineado a los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Para nosotros es muy importante estar en esta conferencia. Por eso estamos aquí dos jefes, como jefes de delegación, dos ministros. Ministro Humberto Cholango, secretario ministro del Agua, y quien les habla. Este marco institucional, el marco que hemos desarrollado en el país, nos permite o nos guía para introducir la transición hacia una nueva economía basada en lo que nosotros llamamos el bioconocimiento. El Ecuador es uno de los 17 países megadiversos del mundo y debemos estar conscientes de que el uso responsable de esta biodiversidad fácilmente nos puede permitir diversificar la producción a través de bienes con valor agregado que inclinen nuestra balanza comercial, desplazando las importaciones y convirtiéndonos en un país productor y comercializador de productos obtenidos de la transformación de nuestra biodiversidad. Nuestra meta, y eso está incluido en el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo, es que para dentro de unos años el 20% del Producto Interno Bruto Industrial del país provenga de elementos de la bioeconomía. Y salir poco a poco del extractivismo, de la extracción de recursos no renovables como el petróleo o la minería. Como Ecuador, nuestro compromiso con el medio ambiente es real y lo demostramos con acciones concretas. Hemos desarrollado una estrategia nacional de biodiversidad, la cual ya contempla a la bioeconomía como un eje fundamental de sus líneas de acción. Somos el segundo país del mundo en contar con un plan de acción Red Plus, que actualmente se encuentra siendo implementado en la Amazonía. Somos también pioneros en la agenda de conservación de los océanos con la declaración de un nuevo santuario marino alrededor de las Islas Galápagos. Y todas estas muestras son muestras de una voluntad política y de una voluntad popular, porque es responsabilidad de los estados responder a la exigencia de nuestros pueblos de tener un ambiente sano y saludable donde sus recursos se utilicen responsablemente para asegurar la subsistencia de las futuras generaciones. No obstante, el llevar a cabo estas acciones requiere que los flujos financieros existentes converjan para dar apoyo a estos esquemas de conservación. Es ahí donde las finanzas para la biodiversidad son fundamentales para tener recursos, administrar capitales y utilizar incentivos financieros para apoyar la gestión sostenible de la biodiversidad. Para este efecto se deben incluir no solamente los recursos financieros públicos, sino también recursos privados, donde las inversiones en actividades comerciales produzcan resultados positivos para nuestra biodiversidad. Innegablemente, la cooperación internacional tiene un rol fundamental en las finanzas para la biodiversidad, y es así que como país aplaudimos la iniciativa global de BIOFIN por el apoyo brindado en la búsqueda de soluciones que permitan reducir la brecha de financiamiento existente para que nuestros países puedan asegurar la calidad de gasto en las inversiones realizadas en torno a la biodiversidad y que claramente contribuirán a los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Finalmente, como dijo Gandhi, tú debes ser el cambio que quieres ver en el mundo. Y es así que nos alegra entender que no estamos solos en esta lucha contra la pérdida de biodiversidad, pues es evidente que todos ustedes, quienes se han congregado en este espacio, tienen las mismas aspiraciones de un mundo biodiverso que nos permita desarrollarnos como especie humana siendo partes integrales de este planeta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, and it's amazing to see how many different finance solutions you're working on in Ecuador. I think that's really inspiring for all of us, and we definitely hope to learn more from your work in the coming 3 days. I know you're featured in several other sessions as well. So with that, we conclude our official opening segment. I would really like to thank our high-level dignitaries very much for speaking to everybody, and you're now most welcome to blend in and take a seat in the room as we close this opening segment. So as we're in this transition, I would already like to point at that side of the room where we have something really new and innovative, which is a wall of biodiversity finance solutions. We're going to talk about that later, but whenever you have a chance, this is showing all the different financing mechanism solutions that we have seen in any country in BIOFIN or other around the world, and there's more than 150. Please. We're going to have now our keynote speech, so I'll come say hello after.
All right. Just now?
Yeah, just now we have a speech. Okay, I would now like to welcome Ms. Namita Vikas, Group President for Responsible Banking and Chief Sustainability Officer of Yes Bank in India, because of course we also know that the role of the private sector is so important, and we are very keen to hear what Yes Bank is doing about financing and conservation.
Very much, Excellencies, dignitaries, good morning. It is indeed a pleasure to be here today at the third Global BIOFIN Conference. Thank you very much for inviting Yes Bank. We are the fourth largest private sector commercial bank in India, but ahead of sustainable and climate finance, always innovating pathways to sustainable development. Well, India being one of the mega diverse countries in the world, this conference here in Chennai is being organized at a very opportune time. Biodiversity is an absolutely important agenda for India, and investments in this critical area would need to be really accelerated, given that it addresses poverty reduction, economic sustainability, and of course the full range of sustainable development goals which we saw the other speakers explicitly mention here earlier. Biodiversity loss is undoubtedly a major environmental challenge facing humankind, as it provides a range of invaluable services impacting society as well as economic activity. And since I'm from the private sector, I would really talk on behalf of the private sector. So if business continues as usual, a further 10% loss in biodiversity by 2050 is expected, says an OECD Environmental Outlook to 2050 report, thus threatening the provision of these services. Therefore, it is time to act now. Recently, the European Union's high-level expert group on sustainable finance observed in one of its reports that natural capital had not been included in standard economic production functions so far, as it was taken for granted, and which no longer is really the luxury or the case anymore. It is important to therefore note that the 6 out of the 17 SDGs specifically address natural capital production, and 7 others depend on natural capital for its implementation, making it a priority area. The Economic Survey of India has clearly identified climate change as a major risk, expecting it to affect annual agriculture incomes by about 15 to 25%. And this is a major concern for an agrarian economy like India and many others here, where particularly in India, where agriculture is contributing almost about 17.3% to its GDP. And with the estimated growth of 7 to 7.5% that India is looking forward to, it really puts natural capital, which is valued at about 914 billion US dollars, under a lot of pressure, given the dependence on economic growth so much on the natural resource consumption that we've seen. Under the visionary leadership of Shri Harshvardhan, our Environment Minister, the Government of India has been leading biodiversity conservation efforts and also roping in the private sector that has been contributing by undertaking several environmental initiatives as a part of its CSR commitments. However, the quantum of investments or the finance that is required is so large and huge that multi-actor action needs to kick in immediately, setting a platform for all stakeholders to come together to analyze and assess natural resources in the nation's development and build a very robust financial architecture to address this investment gap. We've seen that public finance is often and mostly the main conduit of infusing capital towards biodiversity. However, to mainstream finance, private players need to be brought in. And from an investor or a banking lens perspective, I would like to put forth what are the challenges and the opportunities that lie in front of us when one looks at risk-return profile of biodiversity finance. Well, this whole area from a private sector perspective is still evolving, and projects are often seen as unproven concepts, making these high risk due to unreliable revenue sources, high dependencies on externalities, and a probability of minor fluctuations that could reduce revenues further increases the risk profile, reducing investor interest and bringing unviability to projects when it comes to private sector finance. It is also seen that most biodiversity projects need an upfront investment and start producing cash flows only after a few years. Given that these are long-term projects with long tenures, it is less attractive to investors who are looking for short-term and immediate gains. Biodiversity projects tend to have multidimensional benefits, some preventing future losses and some direct benefits to the community. Therefore, it becomes very difficult to monetize and look at the ROI, the return on investment that the private sector is constantly looking at. And there is no real framework to calculate how preserving wetlands can avoid floods, but this benefit cannot be translated into the returns for investors. Adding to these overarching challenges within the Indian financial sector, there is also a lack of means and expertise to understand the risks or develop products for biodiversity finance. Due to the multifaceted nature of projects, relevant specialists who would understand ecology, law, public policy are often missing or very less in number within the financial sector, which adds up to the challenge. In order to have a financial system cognizant of biodiversity, it would be therefore very important to build environmental fiscal reforms, payments for ecosystem services, biodiversity offsets, markets for green products, biodiversity and climate change funding, international development finance that needs to be brought to the table, which is really very, very important in today's day and time. Now, while there are all these challenges, there is a huge potential and a huge opportunity that is in front of us. And I would like to propose 4 areas that collectively the governments, the private sector, the civil society needs to really look at. First, it is very important to build capacities. Biodiversity finance as a concept needs deeper knowledge, trained specialists, and awareness within finance professionals to look at risk management, credit enhancements, blended financing, and differentiated financial structures to really infuse capital in these areas. Global coalitions like the Natural Capital Coalition and the Natural Capital Finance Alliance are currently in the process of developing frameworks The Natural Capital Finance Alliance was formed by the UNEP-FI and the Global Canopy Program, which has 45 private sector financial institutions which are developing the finance sector supplement that would help banks, investment companies and insurance companies to look at natural capital from an impact and a dependency perspective. The supplement would map investment opportunities addressing the risks of operations in a very holistic manner. Successful application of the financial sector supplement has the potential to identify opportunities in biodiversity finance, which are usually overlooked by the private sector, channelizing more finance into these areas. Additionally, at a country level, holistic plans are being developed. We've seen the government of India, the Philippines, and the other governments who presented here. And this would be really useful to create as a core plan that will tackle climate change as an issue. My second area is addressing the most critical parameter when it comes to private sector finance, and that is the perceived high risk of biodiversity finance. Various mitigation methods can be deployed to improve a particular project's expected risk-adjusted returns. For example, the NCFA, that's Natural Capital Finance Alliance, is formulating environmental risk management project that will enable financial institutions to better understand, assess and integrate natural capital related risks into their existing risk management processes. This would certainly then help financial institutions direct more capital towards companies that are embedding natural capital risks like droughts and floods in the areas of operations. Debt risks can then be tackled through liquid collaterals, and equity risks can be addressed through assured cash flows. Guarantees by developmental financial institutions or governments would further reduce the risks and increase investor appetite who seek market level returns in addition to conservation impact, thus making projects investment grade. Thirdly, it is very important to look at innovative financial mechanisms, particularly for banks, because banks really look at future cash flows, long-term tenures, and strong credit enhancements. We've seen that the green bond market has exponentially grown to be at about 130 billion USD today. In India alone, we have formulated a green bond market of about 6.5 billion. And the next big disruption is in water bonds, that is blue bonds and forest bonds. We have seen the IFC recently do a very innovative financial instrument that is creating value for investors, and this is particularly through forest bonds that were issued. Now, these could be really replicated in several countries by multilateral development banks, financial intermediaries, and of course governments, wherein the bond issuer can generate revenues by placing the yet-to-be issued carbon or ecosystem services credits as collaterals, or by selling certified forest-related products such as timber or ecotourism. So, and then it becomes very attractive for the private sector to come in as co-investors through de-risking and bundling of small projects, thus taking support from supranationals like the GCF or the GEF, and formulating a kind of a blended structure that can fuel finance to biodiversity as a whole. Lastly, my point is on a structured financial approach which is seen very successfully in the Tropical Landscape Finance Facility of Indonesia. There, it leverages private finance for public good by scaling up investments in renewable energy and landscapes, resulting in enhancing the GDP of the poor. This is achieved through sustainable production of agriculture commodities and improved smallholder productivity with reduced deforestation. The facility bridges the gap between government and private sector and communities, coordinating cross-functionality to bring about large-scale social impact and positive change. A similar facility can be replicated in India, where there are large communities in Kerala, West Bengal, and Uttarakhand, which are dependent on forests, and then they can get the benefit of private investments while simultaneously contributing to conservation of local forests. In India, Yes Bank has been pioneering some work on natural capital, and last year developed reports on natural capital mapping and valuation, which our very own environment minister released. Now, the report really aims to place a value on natural capital, thus making private financiers and investors aware of the cost that is associated with conservation finance and how this can get translated into profitable investment opportunities over the long term, and also help achieve the country's SDGs. Well, it is very evident that biodiversity finance is an untapped market which is ready to be developed. Estimated annual biodiversity financial requirements is anywhere at about 500 billion USD, and the current annual global biodiversity funding is at sub 70 billion US. Now, there's a huge gap, and then there is a huge opportunity. So while the government of India, various states have put in considerable effort and money in conservation of forests, especially in endangered species, it is time for the private capital to really step in and play its part. We at Yes Bank very firmly believe that favorable policy environment, along with private finance, focused on biodiversity conservation, should pave the path forward for achieving India's SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think Yes Bank is really pioneering in terms of conservation finance. I hope you're going to expand that work, and I hope governments around the room are going to talk to banks in their country and say this is a good model and it can be replicated all around the world. So we have come to the end of the session 1. So I'm going to from here on hand over to our third BIOFIN Global Conference facilitator, and I would like to call on Ms. Gillian Mayers, who I think many of you already know if you joined our previous global workshop. So Gillian, from here over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Anno. Welcome everyone, it's very nice to be with you again. You'll be hearing from me, certainly in the plenary sessions, and in the next session I'll tell you a little bit more about how we're going to work, some of the special features, etc. But now it's time for coffee break. So I'd like to invite you to first join us for a group photo. So we're going to have a photograph taken just out here. Please walk past coffee and be in the photo first, because if you stop for coffee, you'll miss the photo, and you don't want to miss this photo. We actually are going to take the photo with a drone. So there will be a drone who's going to take it from above, because we're a group of 220 people. So please, we're running a little bit late. We started a little bit late this morning. Our second session will start at 11:30, so that should give you plenty of time for the photo and your coffee, but please be back at 11:30 promptly and join us now for a photograph. So we'll go out these doors and our photographers will help us set up for a quick group photo. Thank you.
If everyone could just move out past the coffee and stand on the steps facing out to the garden, the drone will fly up above us and...
Please go for the photo, because we're going to take it quickly. If you'd like to be in the photo, you'll need to be outside. So.
Check, check, hello, hello, check. Testing, hello, check, hello. Check, check, hello, hello, check, hello. Testing, hello, check, hello, hello.
Sorry, cross. Sorry.
Check, hello, hello.
Side la matadi. Side la matadi.
Check, hello, hello.
No, it's look hard.
Check, check, hello, check. Check, hello. Testing, hello, check. Hello, check, hello. Check, check, hello, hello, check, hello. Hello, check, hello. Check, check, hello, hello, check.
Idanja.
Check, hello.
இல்ல 5 மியூட் போட்டல 5 தான் இது 5 மியூட் போட்டேன் அப்ப அந்த மைக் எடுத்துக்கலாமா இல்ல அதுக்கு ஏதோ லூஸ் டெஸ்ட் செக் செக் டெஸ்ட் செக் செக் ஓகே இல்ல செக் Yo.
Check, check, hello. Check, hello. உக்காந்து செக் பண்ணுமா check, hello, hello, check, hello. Check, hello, hello, check, hello. Check.
உக்காந்து பேசுமா
Hello, check, hello. Check, hello. Check, hello. Check, hello.
Welcome back, everyone. Please have a seat. We're going to go ahead and start our second session this morning. We can have your attention. So this second session has two parts. So the first part is really an introduction to some of the features of this meeting for the next 3 days. And the second part is going to be a panel discussion. We wanted to start this session with a reminder of the objectives of our meeting for the next 3 days. So I'm going to give the floor to Anno to remind us of those. So, Anno.
Okay, thank you and welcome back, everybody. So, what we're really trying to achieve with this global conference, I think, is a couple of things. First of all, we want to build partnerships between countries. So we want countries to get ideas of how they can work together on a bilateral basis, maybe on a regional basis, or maybe, hopefully, even on a global basis. So that's one thing that we're trying to achieve. We also want to inspire countries. We're showing so many different finance solutions. We hope that you get new ideas and knowledge about what you can do in your countries. And the third thing we want is we want to provide a platform for you to share your ideas. So we really hope that each of you finds a little spot somewhere in the agenda, in some session, to share some knowledge from your country. So those are actually three very simple ideas that are behind this conference, and we developed a quite elaborate program around that. And we hope that we can achieve those, and we want to hear back to you at the end of the workshop on how we did on that. So back over to you, Gillian.
Great. Thank you very much, Anno. I'd like to just go over very high level the agenda for the next couple of days. So you've all seen the agenda, but there are some special features to note. So today we've had our opening session, we've had some context setting in the opening plenary. As I mentioned, we've got some introductions here in a moment, and then we've got our first of the high-level panel on public finance. After lunch, we go into a series of parallel sessions. So you might have noticed on the agenda that we have 6 of these sessions. So over the next 3 days, there are 24 parallel sessions on offer to you. So your hard work is to try to choose amongst those 4, amongst the 4 during each one of the sessions. They're organized in streams. So stream 1 is implementing finance solutions of scale. The second stream is on unlocking private sector finance flows. The third stream is about piloting innovative financing solutions. And the fourth stream is looking at the BIOFIN methodology. The fourth stream is of particular interest to countries that are new to the BIOFIN family. So those are going to be really introductory sessions that will be very useful for those countries who are just coming in to get support. So those are the 4 streams. We have breakout rooms. So there are 3 breakout rooms. They're in the building, so they're not very far away. And this room is also going to be one of the 4. You need to look at the schedule to see in which room, obviously, the parallel sessions are. Only the sessions in this room will have the translation. So if translation is something you're looking for, those in this room, and there are different ones in different streams, but you just need to look. How many of you have been able to download the app already? Have some of you? Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a useful way of keeping on top of where things are, announcements, what's going on, etc. So you might want to look into that. In a moment, I'm going to tell you more about hashtags and things, but we had some questions this morning about the Wi-Fi. I put the Wi-Fi password and the username over on the board. It's very simple. It's just BIOFIN, small letters for both the username and the password. However, whenever we have a panel session up here, we turn the Wi-Fi off because we're live streaming, and the bandwidth is not enough to let everybody be on Twitter and do the live streaming. So apologies for that, but you won't have Wi-Fi when we're actually doing something up here, but you should have it now. So do you have Wi-Fi now? Yes, most of you? Those who want it? Okay, that sounds good. So I wanted to mention that. So day 1, we're going to, after lunch, go into those parallel sessions, and we won't reconvene in plenary today. So tomorrow, we actually have 2 interesting panel discussions here in the morning. So we'll come together at 9 o'clock. That'll take us up to the coffee break, and then we have 2 sets of parallel sessions before and after lunch. And then at the end of tomorrow, we've got our Biodiversity Finance Solutions Marketplace. So I wanted to say a couple words about that. I'll do that in a moment because I've got another slide. But the marketplace has a lot of other interactive features, and so that's something that's going to be going on tomorrow at the end of the day. And our third day will start with parallel sessions. We then have a community of practice open space because first and foremost, these 3 days are really for you all. It's a community meeting, as Anno said, to share, exchange, learn from each other. And so that open space is going to be a time when you're going to program the discussion. So you get to propose what we talk about. We then go into stream sessions and have a closing session at the end. So that's our 3 days. Knowledge sharing happens in a lot of different ways. You do it at coffee breaks. But we do have a poster exhibition. So in the marketplace area. The marketplace is also a time when it's going to be a structured and even some semi-structured opportunities for sharing and exchange. We'll tell you more about that just before we get there. And there's also the community open space, which I mentioned. I'm going to pause for a minute now and draw your attention to something on all of your tables. So every table has 2 small cards. And these cards are for you to propose an open space discussion if you would like to. This is completely voluntary. But if you have an idea, and you would like to host a table conversation for 45 minutes on any topic, any question you have, an idea you want some feedback on, a proposal you're trying to develop, an existential question you're grappling with, you can fill out this card. The card asks you for a topic, just what you would title your session. It asks for a short description, so just a couple of lines, and it asks for a host. So if you're writing something down, you need to host it or co-host it with somebody else. But you can't propose that somebody else has a session. You have to be one of the hosts. If you would like to do this, please fill this out in the next 2 days. Our open space is on day 3, and make sure you give me your card. So we have 31 tables in the room, so we can have 62 concurrent small discussions. So please give us your ideas if you'd like to do that. So I wanted to take a moment and share with you how that was going to be working. Some of the other features, we've seen some people congregating at the Finance Solutions wall. So the wall has the list of finance solutions, and if your country is interested in learning more about any of those, there are some markers there, and we'd like to ask you to write your country name in the box beside the solution. And that's something that we'll follow up with after the conference. And you can sign up for as many as you like. You just put your country name up there, and it will be going for the next 3 days. We also have a photo competition, and some of you might have seen the photos exhibited outside, really beautiful photos, and we'll be announcing the winners of the competition during the marketplace tomorrow, so you want to have a look at that. Refreshments are special features. We are going to, at the end of the marketplace, have a cocktail reception, so that's tomorrow afternoon. And then I already mentioned the app. There's also on the upper right-hand corner the 3 hashtags that we're using. Are any of you tweeting? Do we have some tweeters? So we've got some people. Great. So we'd ask you to have a look at those hashtags and use those, and we'll be able to track what you're writing and hopefully get a lot of promotion. Those are global, so we might have people from outside the meeting who are tweeting back at us, so it'll be interesting to hear the kind of conversations that are happening. All right, so that's what's going on for the next couple of days. There are a lot of activities that are going to be all the way through, the wall of solutions, the photo competition, etc. But there are also some very specific events like the marketplace, the open space, for which we'll have a chance of doing that sharing and exchanging. The community, as I mentioned, we have 220 or so people with us. And so we wanted to take a moment and just see who's in the room. And what I'd like to ask, I'm going to go through a couple of different categories of people, and I'd like you to stand up so we can just see you and recognize you. And I'd like to start with the regions. So if you are coming from Southeast Asia Pacific region, could you please stand up so we can see who's here from that part of the world? We should have a number of people all spread out. Great. Oh, quite a few. Wonderful. Welcome to all of you, Southeast Asia and Pacific. Happy to have you with us. If you're coming from Asia or Central Asia, could you please stand up? So you decide which category you fit in. All right. Also a big group. Welcome to all of you. We're here with you in your region. If you're coming from Africa, could you please stand up? I have some colleagues. This is a long trip for many of you. Great. Wonderful. Welcome. And from Latin America and the Caribbean. Where are our groups from? Oh, big group. Excellent. Excellent, great. And so, rest of the world, anybody here from any place else? So we should have some Europeans, North Americans. Great, okay, welcome. So these are the different regions we have, and you can see kind of how many people are coming from each one. We also have a lot of different sectors. This is a very diverse group in terms of sector. Again, you can stand up more than once. Many of you probably have multiple hats on, even at in this particular event. So if you're working for government at any level, from local to national, please could you stand up? Our government colleagues. Great. Welcome. Oh, lots. Wonderful. Big group. If you're working for NGOs or the civil society, could you stand up? We have some people from, okay, welcome. What about the private sector? So we have some colleagues here, certainly from the private sector. We've got a panel on that. Welcome, great. We see you back there. University and academia. You should have a number of people who are coming. Excellent. What about the media? Some people representing the media? Okay. Welcome. That included social media, so then many of us would stand up. Any other sectors that I didn't call? UN, intergovernmental. So what about our UN colleagues? Oh, this is a big group. Excellent. Okay. So we've got regions, we've got sectors. We also have people with different roles. So if you're a BIOFIN country focal point, could you stand up? So we've got focal points from all the countries. I'm sure we have more than one, no? One country focal point? You're just shy. All right, there we go. We should have focal points for all the countries, and we're going to be hearing from you tomorrow. Great. Okay, so welcome to our focal points. We've also got a number of experts. So if you're a BIOFIN expert, so this can take a lot of different forms, but could you stand up if you're an expert? So you're probably someone who's going to be giving a parallel session, you feed into the thematic discussions, etc. Okay, great. Thanks to our experts. Experts have been working very hard in preparing this meeting, and so have the BIOFIN staff members. So could I ask you to stand up if you're on the BIOFIN staff, the global team? Would you stand up so we can especially give you a hand? Right, they're all spread out. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. If you have ever attended a BIOFIN global or regional workshop before, could you please stand up? So let's see how many people have been to some of the other BIOFIN regional or global. Okay. Great. Okay, so actually, yeah, we have quite a few people who stood up there. Let me just break it down a little bit. Who went to the first BIOFIN? It was in, where was it? Slovakia, Bratislava. Who was in Bratislava? We have a few people who were in Bratislava. That was the first one. So, okay, so you guys have been here since the beginning. What about the Los Cabos meeting? Who was in Mexico with us a couple years ago? I'm standing up for this one too. So we have a number of people who were in Mexico. All right. Now I'd like you to look around you at some of the other tables. How many of you know everybody sitting at all the tables around you? No. Okay. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to look around you and introduce yourself to a few people around you that you don't know. So do that now. Look around you, stand up, shake hands, and tell them who you are. So you meet a few other people right now. Okay, thank you. So you got to meet a couple of other people that you didn't know before. Go ahead and have a seat again. For 220 people, you won't have time to meet everybody. So you have to use the coffee breaks and the lunch times for that. Let's go on. If I could ask you to please take a seat. So you see what kind of an interesting community of people you have to work with for the next couple of days. We're going to go on now, maybe, If people can have a seat. Oh, this is very exciting to meet everybody else. The second part of our session actually has a very provocative title. Did you notice what it was called? It's called The Secrets of Public Financing for Biodiversity. And I'd like to invite, just a moment. Oh, right. So I'd like to invite our moderator to come forward. Max Riva is the Innovation Finance Specialist at UNDP in New York, and he's going to be the moderator for the panel. So let me give the floor now to Max.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone to one of the first thematic session. And indeed, the title is quite ambitious, but it's so important to start understanding the value of public finance in protecting our biodiversity and natural assets. Through the conference and through the different interactions, we will look at different elements of partnership with the private sector on private finance, but we should always remind of the role of our government and our public and treasury in supporting the environment. We have a very distinguished panel with us today, and I will soon call them to join me for this interesting session. Let me first ask Dr. Rodolfo Lesi from Mexico to join our panel. Dr. Rodolfo is the Deputy Minister of Planning and Environmental Policy in Mexico, Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, Semarnat. He holds a PhD in Science and Environmental Engineering from Metropolitan Autonomous University in Mexico and a Master in Environmental Planning from the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He is the founding president of the Environmental Engineer Association of Mexico, former head of advisors to the Minister of Environment in Mexico, and research coordinator for energy and environment projects at the Mario Molina Center. He also was previously the General Director for Prevention and Control of Environmental Pollution at the Mexico City government. Thanks for joining us. Let me also call up on the panel Mr. Ulumbek Karmishakov from the Kyrgyz Republic. Thank you. Mr. Karmishakov is the Deputy Minister of Finance of the Kyrgyz Republic. He assumed the position of Deputy Minister in 2015. Mr. Karmishakov has more than 30 years of experience at the Ministry of Finance and held many positions, including Head of Department of Finance and Budget Control and Audit, as well as Head of Budget Policy and Expenditure. He was awarded a honorary award of Financial and Economic Service of the Kyrgyz Republic. We are also very proud he chairs the National Project Board of BIOFIN in the Kyrgyz Republic. Thank you for joining us. Let me then invite our colleague from South Africa, Dimpo Makotoko. Dimpo Makotoko is the Chief Operations Officer for the Department of Environmental Affairs in South Africa. She oversees South African National Sustainable Development and Greening Policy processes and initiatives. She is responsible for the oversight of the environmental sector, performance management, and overall coordination along all spheres of government. Her background is in business and performance management. Let us welcome Ms. Dimpo Makoto. Thank you. Let me introduce also our last panelist, last but not least, Juan Ladrón de Guevara. He's the Executive Director of the Chilean Sustainability and Climate Change Agency. Please join the panel. Juan is the Executive Director of the Chilean Climate Change Agency, which has the mission to foster a sustainable, low-carbon and resilient economy. Through private and public partnerships. The agency was previously known as the Chilean National Clean Production Council, and Juan was the former executive director. He is also an adjunct professor at the University of Chile, and we'll engage him particularly on public and private engagement. So let us welcome him. thank you, distinguished panelists, and to joining us on this first discussion. The topic is well known and is how to harness public finance in different forms for the service of the biodiversity agenda. I will give you first a chance of a brief introduction of your main theme and a suggestion on how to unveil those secrets of public finance. We have a very mixed audience here. We have colleagues from the Ministry of Finance, from the Ministry of Environment and other sectors, as well as private companies and representatives of international organizations. So let me first address the floor to you, Dr. Rodolfo, to provide us a brief introduction on the importance development in Mexico, and particularly in relation to the SDGs. Mexico has been one of the forerunners on budgeting for the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Please take your headphones. Bien, con respecto al financiamiento sobre biodiversidad, en México nosotros hemos tenido una larga tradición de manejo de la biodiversidad a través de programas públicos. Entonces, básicamente, hay una corriente de financiamiento con presupuesto del gobierno federal, que a veces se soporta también con presupuesto de gobiernos locales, y un complemento, por lo general, de organismos o de instituciones filantrópicas. En realidad es todavía muy incipiente el financiamiento que de manera franca se hace desde el sector privado. Para efectos prácticos, ahora de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, lo que estamos haciendo es un cambio en la legislación, que es parte del secreto de que los burócratas le dediquemos dinero a un tema, cualquiera que este sea el tema, ¿sí? Entonces, nuestra Secretaría de Hacienda, que es como la Secretaría del Tesoro, el Ministerio del Tesoro, ha decidido modificar una ley que es fundamental en la designación de metas y objetivos, que es la Ley de Planeación Democrática. Entonces, nuestra Ley de Planeación Democrática no menciona en la actualidad que tenemos un objetivo de largo plazo, sino solamente indica que todos los sectores, el gobierno federal, pero el sector transporte, el sector agricultura, el sector del medio ambiente, deben tener programas que duran 6 años, que es lo que dura en México una administración. El presidente tiene 6 años de mandato. Entonces, para poder tener objetivos de largo plazo, o sea, para poder adoptar una agenda del 2030, es necesario modificar la ley. Y estamos en ese proceso de modificar la ley. Una vez que modifiquemos la ley, nosotros entonces incorporamos las metas de los objetivos de desarrollo, los indicadores numéricos, y esos objetivos entonces se vuelven parte de nuestros programas de trabajo, de una manera obligatoria, porque ahorita pues son de una manera voluntaria. Para el funcionario público se volverían de una manera obligatoria. Hay que ser también realistas. Todos nosotros estamos convencidos de que el tema de la biodiversidad es transversal y que toca prácticamente todas las actividades humanas que un gobierno regula o todas las iniciativas que la sociedad en su conjunto tiene. Si hablamos de algodón o si hablamos de agua, etcétera, sabemos que detrás de los objetos tenemos a la biodiversidad. La podemos usar de manera directa, ¿no? Es el caso del algodón, o de manera indirecta al impactarla por el procesamiento de combustibles fósiles, ¿sí? Entonces, una pregunta fundamental es ¿cuánto gastamos en biodiversidad? Que es un tema transversal. Bueno, para poder saber eso, en nuestro país, en México, necesitamos tener un mandato de ley. Ahorita, por ejemplo, tenemos un mandato de ley para saber cuánto gastamos en grupos indígenas, cuánto gastamos en asuntos de género, de la mujer, y cuánto gastamos en asuntos de cambio climático. Entonces, si alguien le pregunta a nuestro presidente o a cualquier funcionario público cuánto gastamos en esos tres temas, podemos dar una cifra. Entonces, yo puedo decir, gastamos en cambio climático, en el presupuesto federal, 70,000 millones de pesos. Pero si me preguntan cuánto gastamos en biodiversidad, no lo puedo contestar, porque no tengo, por mandato de ley, la obligación de etiquetar el presupuesto para biodiversidad, ¿sí? Entonces, para poderlo hacer, estamos introduciendo los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable. Pero hay que ser pragmáticos, ¿sí? Los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable, los 17, no hablan todos de biodiversidad. De hecho, no incorporan la palabra biodiversidad más que en los objetivos 14 y 15. Entonces, nosotros tenemos que de manera indirecta introducir el concepto de biodiversidad en el diseño de las políticas públicas de los demás objetivos. ¿Cuántos objetivos hablan de manera directa o indirecta del medio ambiente que está relacionado con la biodiversidad? No son muchos, por eso digo que hay que ser pragmáticos. Son 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ¿sí? Entonces, si un funcionario público que se dedica a la pobreza le dicen, oye, ¿cuánto le dedicas tú a biodiversidad? Va a decir, bueno, no tengo el mandato. Yo sé cuánto le estoy metiendo, por ejemplo, a la adaptación en ecosistemas para que los pobres no sufran los embates de los desastres naturales, ¿sí? Entonces, si alguien está gastando dinero en proteger los manglares, en donde vive también gente, para que los huracanes no impacten a las comunidades costeras, pues eso es una ecuación de 3 incógnitas y es difícil de contestar. Entonces, sí vamos a tener que desarrollar nosotros indicadores que van más allá de los indicadores que hemos pactado para los ODS, que hablen específicamente de diversidad, para contestar la pregunta sencilla de cuánto gastamos en biodiversidad. BIOFIN nos ha estado ayudando en contestar esa pregunta, pero a futuro pues vamos a tener que tener muchas más herramientas de política pública y de planeación. Nuestro enfoque es el que estoy yo ahorita comentando, es modificar la ley para que sea obligatorio, poder contestar esa pregunta.
Muchas gracias. I think several important elements of that can be considered secrets are somehow well known, but they never need to be forgotten. And sometimes it's not sufficient to collect just data, but without mandates, policies, and leadership engagement, it might not be possible to achieve positive results. Let me pass to another country, which is in Central Asia. Deputy Minister, what has been the experience of Kyrgyzstan and in planning and in mainstreaming biodiversity in economic policy?
Спасибо, Максимилиано. Во-первых, я хотел бы поприветствовать всех участников глобальной конференции от имени кыргызской делегации. Кыргызстан – это красивая горная страна, которая находится в Центральной Азии, территорию которого более 95% это горы, очень красивые горы, очень много рек и озер. Еще раз, уважаемые друзья, я хотел бы обсуждать с вами, поделиться тем опытом, который есть у нас в Кыргызстане в части финансирования государственного финансирования биоразнообразия и экосистем. К сожалению, как всегда финансисты говорят, всегда денег не хватает. У правительства, конечно, очень много приоритетных направлений, но, тем не менее, на финансирование экосистем биоразнообразия в нашей стране выделяется менее 1% общих расходов государственного бюджета, к сожалению. если быть точнее, то 0,16% от общих расходов. Поэтому это мы считаем, конечно, недостаточным. В первую очередь мы должны не просто вот сохранять для наших потомков, но мы должны улучшить состояние, создать условия по дальнейшему развитию именно охраны окружающей среды, нашего биоразнообразия. Вот поэтому наше правительство тоже, вот, в прошлом году мы приняли стратегический документ, рассчитанный на 5 лет, 2017 по 2022 год. Это называется «Жаңа дорога 40 қадам», то есть 40 шагов к новому, к новой эпохе. И одним из направлений, основных направлений вот этого стратегического документа является именно уделение большого внимания нашей экологической системы и охраны окружающей среды, лесного хозяйства, в целом этого комплекса. Поэтому и не просто принимать вот такие нормативно-правовые акты, а надо доказывать конкретными шагами. Если вот взять, к примеру, то правительство Кыргызстана в прошлом году мы приняли меры по увеличению заработной платы, совершенствованию системы условий оплаты труда именно работников лесного хозяйства, охраны окружающей среды. То есть это создаст стимул для усиления работы вот именно работников этого сектора. Как раз о чем мы здесь говорим, вот проблема по сохранению биоразнообразия. Вот впереди выступающая вот, с банка ЕС, по-моему, госпожа Намета сказала, что в Индии есть хороший пример по финансированию частным банкам вот именно той проблемы, о которой мы обсуждаем. К сожалению, у нас такого пока еще нет, но наш парламент принял очень хороший закон, который называется закон о ГЧП, то есть о государственно-частном предпринимательстве, по которому есть у нас желающие, сейчас вот мой коллега там с ПРООН Кумар тоже подтвердил об этом, что есть желающие хорошие инвесторы частные, которые хотят вложить именно в этот сектор частные инвестиции. Поэтому, уважаемые друзья, если что, приезжайте в Кыргызстан, можете вложить, мы создадим все условия по защите ваших инвестиций, по развитию ваших инвестиций, именно направленных на сохранение охраны окружающей среды. Также я хотел бы отметить, что бюджетных денег, как я уже говорил, всегда недостаточно. Поэтому мы должны еще привлечь для финансирования вот этой системы международных доноров. Да, спасибо вот экспертам BIOFIN, вы оказываете большую помощь правительству Кыргызстана и в целом для населения Кыргызстана, оказываете всяческую поддержку в разработке вот этих программ, в рамках которого у нас существует несколько программ по тому же проекту у нас по сохранению снежного барса, который проходил в прошлом году у нас в Кыргызстане в сентябре, если не изменяет память. Также, как я уже говорил, вот, привлечение частных инвесторов. Поэтому еще раз я хотел бы, уважаемые друзья, вот, призвать всю вот эту команду экспертов BIOFIN, еще раз усилить. Вы делаете огромную работу, которая не имеет цены, потому что к 2025-2030 году будут очень большие проблемы по заключению экспертов, особенно по чистой воде. Например, у нас, если в Кыргызстане имеется более 1500 ледников, то последние 10 лет количество вот этих ледников у нас резко сократилось, уменьшается, к сожалению. Хотя мы являемся на истоке вот этих больших рек, которые подпитывают Центральноазиатский регион, это Узбекистан, это уже вот Казахстан. Поэтому это является тоже большой опасностью. Вот именно. Поэтому еще раз, уважаемые друзья, давайте еще раз усилим и оставим нашему следующему поколению, нашим детям, внукам не просто вот то, что есть у нас, а наоборот приумножив, приукрасив и создав те нормативно-правовые условия для развития нашего биоразнообразия. Благодарю вас за внимание. Спасибо.
Ms. Makotako, South Africa is often considered one of the leaders in the conservation space, so we are very eager to hear what would be your suggestions and your remarks in this interesting subject area.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. I'm not sure about the leadership role, but I think there are a few ideas we can share, but we also look forward to learning a bit more ourselves. South Africa, for us, we view biodiversity as an integral part of SDG implementation. So, because we're saying our biodiversity economy contributes to a number of SDGs relating to poverty alleviation, human health, effective management of biodiversity activities. So on the basis of that, we do see a lot of benefits that we can derive from the BIOFIN process, because we are struggling currently on the total cost or deciding or getting the figure or the total cost of managing biodiversity and understanding what then is the shortfall. If we look at the areas that we're currently funding, what is the existing shortfall? We currently have the expanded public sector program, which basically looks at different biodiversity management programs that also contribute to job creation, skills development, which we hope will also assist in this regard. I will later on talk to just a brief, to give you a brief understanding of some of the programs that we are looking at as part of our BIOFIN project. So if we look at what are some of the benefits that we wish to derive from the BIOFIN partnership, we're saying it needs to assist us to start to systematically prioritize resources and activities that are in our existing national biodiversity strategy and action plan, so that we then have adequate funding for those initiatives and programs that we have. But we also feel that BIOFIN would need to then link with global discussions on natural capital accounts and mainstreaming biodiversity into production sectors, because we see that as a potential source of revenue for sustainable use of biodiversity. We are hoping that we will be able to at least get a uniform framework with using the process, a uniform framework for assessing the costs of managing biodiversity, while at the same time creating the sufficient flexibility that we all require in our different contexts. Because for us as South Africa, when we look at our context, we have looked at 3 pillars. And our first pillar has been on financing solutions for protected areas, where we're looking at expanding our conservation estate as a starting point. We also have an area around ecosystem restoration, and our priority there is on biodiversity offsets. We are also looking at sustainable use of resources. The initial focus, which we hope to still expand on, is around certification schemes for wildlife economy. As I've indicated, we currently have a finance plan which has 16 solutions. It's currently now on the final stages of approval for implementation. I hope you'll give me an opportunity to come back and share a bit more details on some of the areas that we're looking at financing on. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Ladron de Guevara, so with this initial round of talks and reflections, you are in a very particular seat in the sense that you are between the public and private sector in addressing problems using economic instruments and financial instruments. So it will be very interesting to see your reflection on those topics and learn from your experience. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I will also speak in Spanish, so please put your headphone. Bueno, muchas gracias, Max, y al equipo global por la invitación. Yo voy a... El secreto que quiero compartir con ustedes se refiere a las alianzas público-privadas. Chile es un país que hace más o menos 30 años tiene un liderazgo importante en Latinoamérica en materia económica, y uno de los pilares de ese liderazgo tiene que ver con la capacidad de atraer o movilizar recursos, atraer inversiones hacia objetivos de la política pública, como un pilar fundamental. Las alianzas público-privadas, por lo tanto, son un instrumento económico en el sentido de que son mecanismos para invitar al sector privado a que invierta o que destine recursos hacia objetivos de política importantes para el gobierno. El caso, yo diría que los casos probablemente más conocidos de alianzas público-privadas son los mecanismos de concesiones de obras públicas, por ejemplo, la construcción de una carretera, en que uno invita a un inversionista privado a que construya la obra y luego tiene un mecanismo de recuperación de la inversión a través del pago de los peajes, por ejemplo, de la autopista por 10, 20, 30 años. Lo que la agencia que yo dirijo hace es otro tipo de alianza público-privada, en que lo que nosotros buscamos es que las empresas implementen nuevas tecnologías, en este caso tecnologías ambientales, tecnologías verdes. Pero tiene la misma lógica, es un proceso en que nosotros colaboramos en identificar cuáles son las barreras que las empresas tienen y ayudamos a que ellas hagan inversión directa en esas tecnologías. Cuando hablo de tecnología estoy hablando de inversiones en activos, por lo tanto recursos significativos, o también la adopción de mejores prácticas en determinados sectores. Por ejemplo, introducir manejo sustentable del bosque nativo, introducir sustentabilidad, tecnologías de sustentabilidad en la agricultura. Chile es un país exportador muy importante. Introducir mejoras tecnológicas en el sector turismo, o en el sector pesquero o acuícola, o sea, que son todos sectores donde estas tecnologías tienen o pueden tener un efecto significativo en el medio ambiente y en particular en la biodiversidad. ¿Cuál es el principal elemento para, o sea, cómo uno administra una política de alianzas público-privadas? Esto se parece mucho más a manejar un portafolio de alianzas. O sea, cada sector, una alianza con el sector forestal, por ejemplo, para introducir una forma de manejo sustentable de los bosques, tiene especificidades que son distintas de las que yo requiero para hacerlo con la agricultura, con el sector turismo, con el sector de obras públicas, el sector de manufactura, etcétera. Entonces, acá no hay una receta, no hay un método único, el instrumento no es uno solo para todos los sectores, sino que es más bien una visión, un método general que yo lo adapto a cada uno de los casos donde yo quiero trabajar. Por eso la agencia en la que trabajo más bien es administramos un pool un portafolio de alianzas del orden de, hoy en día, después de casi 20 años de experiencia, del orden de 160 alianzas público-privadas que ya están implementadas o en proceso de implementación en todos los sectores de la economía. Eso, yo quiero parar hasta aquí. Más adelante voy a contar quizás algunos ejemplos, pero me interesa más bien el concepto de que las alianzas público-privadas finalmente son mecanismos en que el Estado invita o moviliza al sector privado para que invierta directamente en objetivos que le interesan al gobierno. En este caso, lo que nos convoca es la biodiversidad. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. Vice Minister, you mentioned in your first intervention some of the preconditions or necessary elements for helping to mainstream biodiversity in economic policy and financing. And we know that the President Office initiative with budgeting of the SDGs and of other opportunities that have been offered to the environmental sector to be more active and more proactive. So what you think, how would you describe these opportunities, and what would you suggest in terms of taking the best efforts and making advancement in mainstreaming biodiversity in financing and economic policies? And as you might have, we are switching a bit on languages, so a bit of patience on that, but please go ahead. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, because mainstreaming was launched as an initiative of Mexico in the COP13. Voy a hablar en español, sorry. I'm going to speak in English, in Spanish. Para México es muy importante que el tema de biodiversidad sea un tema intrínsecamente importante y estratégico en aquellos sectores que usan la biodiversidad para generar riqueza. La agricultura, la ganadería, las actividades forestales y en particular el turismo, ¿no? Entonces, nosotros tenemos este principio de actuación y quisiéramos ver que esos sectores no utilicen dinero para hacer un uso indebido y no sustentable de la biodiversidad. Y si tienen dinero, que no den subsidios a aquellas actividades que pueden dañar la biodiversidad y que, en cambio, utilicen ese dinero para financiar proyectos en donde la biodiversidad sea un tema central, pero también sea parte de un nuevo paradigma o una nueva forma de hacer negocio, de crear riqueza en estos sectores. Pero tenemos también un mandato en los SDGs. Por ejemplo, los SDGs sí nos hablan claramente, los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sustentable, del sector turismo, pero nos dicen, oye, tienes que conservar la biodiversidad en los océanos. También pesquerías es parte de esta iniciativa de México en la COP13 hace un año y medio. Tienes que conservar la biodiversidad en los cuerpos de agua dulce, porque ahí hemos perdido una muy buena parte de la biodiversidad acuática. Entonces, ¿cómo conservamos la biodiversidad en los océanos? Es relativamente fácil imaginarlo si, por ejemplo, en áreas naturales protegidas podemos mantener los semilleros, si es que los pudiéramos llamar así, de aquellas especies que son objetivo de pesca, el atún, ¿no? Por poner solamente un ejemplo, los camarones. Pero, ¿qué especies son especies objetivos en términos productivos en aguas continentales, en los cuerpos de agua, ¿sí? Las truchas, por poner un ejemplo, tal vez hay algunas otras especies, pero son economías menores comparadas con las del mar. Entonces nos cuesta más trabajo, o nos va a costar más trabajo cumplir el Objetivo de Desarrollo Sustentable para fresh water. Pero también nos dicen, bueno, tienes que conservar la biodiversidad específicamente en las montañas. Eso nos dice los SDGs, ¿sí? Volviendo a la parte práctica de nuestro quehacer como gobierno, pues nosotros tenemos que diseñar políticas públicas para que, protegiendo la biodiversidad que hay en las montañas, ¿sí?, podamos literalmente ayudar a las gentes que viven en las montañas a tener una economía sustentable. ¿Quién puede financiar? Y eso es una pregunta difícil a veces de contestar. ¿Quién puede financiar la protección de la biodiversidad en las montañas haciendo negocios, APPs, como nos sugiere nuestro colega de Chile, ¿no? Los suizos, ¿no?, cuando hacen resorts, ¿sí?, o ecolodge, o aquellos que de alguna manera están en el negocio turístico, en el negocio forestal, incorporar nuevas prácticas que de alguna manera nos ayuden a la parte de protección de las montañas. Pero en particular quiero comentar algo que los SDGs nos mandatan, y que es diversificar la industria y diversificar nuestro consumo. Nosotros literalmente comemos muy pocas especies y explotamos muy pocas especies para los objetos de la vida cotidiana, ¿sí? Entonces, hay pocas culturas que tienen esta gran diversidad en el manejo de las especies, como la India, por ejemplo, ¿no?, como China. En México también tenemos una gran amplitud del uso de la biodiversidad para la generación del bienestar colectivo. Entonces, nosotros tenemos este otro mandato de diversificar, y al diversificar, pues tendríamos que hacer un uso mayor de la biodiversidad. Ahí hay un riesgo, pero también hay una oportunidad de negocio, y eso lo quiero poner en particular como un foco rojo, porque normalmente para combatir la pobreza, lo que nosotros usamos son los assets, o digamos, lo que los pobres tienen en su entorno inmediato. La mayor parte de nuestras poblaciones pobres sí viven en zonas rurales todavía, y ahí es la biodiversidad quien los puede sacar de la pobreza. Entonces, buscar un financiamiento sustentable para sacar de la pobreza a la gente, haciendo un uso de la biodiversidad, un uso más sustentable, también es uno de los retos que nos plantean los SDGs. Entonces, finalmente, el último mensaje que yo quisiera decir es que nos mandata también los SDGs establecer vínculos positivos con sectores urbanos y rurales. Normalmente hay vínculos negativos, ¿no? Las ciudades se vuelven sumideros de materiales, de biodiversidad, de energía, de todo. Y nosotros tenemos que establecer, además de vínculos positivos en aquellos sectores productivos que generan riqueza con la biodiversidad, vínculos positivos en aquellos sectores que están ligados tradicionalmente de una manera depredadora. Y ese vínculo positivo que debe existir entre la ciudad y los aspectos rurales también requiere de financiamiento para cambiar la forma de hacer negocio. Hasta ahí lo dejo.
Muchas gracias. And continuing, of course, you understand the complexity, like those secrets of public finance for biodiversity are may not simple ones. Like we see the private and public engagement, we do see the different ecosystems, we do see the different sectors. And it's not easy to bring those different elements together. But now I want to dig a bit deeper on a budgeting process that connects the results with allocations. And the government of Kyrgyzstan has started to introduce program-based budgeting as a way to bring additional results. So, Deputy Minister, can you tell a bit more about your experience and what opportunities could offer to the conservation community?
Спасибо, Масsimiliano. Да, действительно, у нас с принятием бюджетного кодекса вот, с 1 января прошлого года мы перешли на программное бюджетирование полностью вот, по всем министерствам, ведомствам. И, естественно, это тоже создает больше условий именно Госагентству охраны окружающей среды и другим министерствам, которые занимаются именно развитием этого биоразнообразия, потому что это дает им больше возможностей. И определять те приоритеты, куда точно направлять и эффективно направлять эти имеющиеся бюджетные средства. Я также хотел бы добавить, что у нас в Кыргызстане, допустим, есть законы, естественно, как и везде, но я хотел бы привести пример. Есть закон о культуре, допустим, и там в законе конкретно указывается определен, какое процентное соотношение оно должно иметь финансирование общих расходов государственного бюджета. Я думаю, нам бы на охрану окружающей среды совместно с нашими коллегами, с парламентариями можно было бы инициировать и, допустим, не более 3 или 4 или какой-то процент, исходя из возможностей, определить, принять такой закон, по которому можно было бы спокойно, планомерно развиваться именно тем службам, которые занимаются этими вопросами. Кроме того, как я уже говорил в своем выступлении, да, действительно, кроме бюджетного финансирования, у нас уже практикуется именно привлечение частных инвесторов, а также международных доноров, которыми, пользуясь случаем, хотел бы выразить огромную благодарность за помощь, оказываемую нашей стране. Такие секреты финансирования охраны окружающей среды. Спасибо.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. And on continuing our discussion on mainstreaming and the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals, how does your department, the Department of Environmental Affairs, see investment in biodiversity as a way and means to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals?
Okay. All right. Thank you. As I indicated earlier on, we see a linkage or a contribution of the biodiversity economy to the Sustainable Development Goals. So if I just look at the 3 integral principles that we see in Sustainable Development Goals. Firstly, the principle of leaving no one behind, if we start with that one. As a government, we have a priority around transformation, around social cohesion, and ensuring that there is equality. So if we then invest in the expanded public work programs that I mentioned earlier on, which both look at job creation, skills development, while still conserving and protecting our biodiversity, that's a key area in which financing in biodiversity can then assist us in implementing Sustainable Development Goals. I just want to pick an example on some of the benefits that we are seeing from these programs. So over and above the ones that I've talked to around jobs and everything, and also ensuring that we end up with a clean environment, basically, which is around the protection and conservation part, there is also access to services that we are able to unlock through these programs that we have. Key elements or components of our biodiversity economy are around the wildlife, unlocking potential of the wildlife sector. And in this area, we're starting to say, how do you get new entrants? So you look at enterprises that you can then start donating wildlife to so that they then have economic activity. And that also contributes also to the economy of the country as a whole. So that's part of the areas that we're looking at when we look at investment in biodiversity, because we're saying whatever investment we make in biodiversity, there must be real value for the communities. I made an example of our protected area strategy. Most of our protected areas are in communities that are very poor. So the key question is, how do we start ensuring that the communities around the parks, who are actually the custodians of our biodiversity, start benefiting from the park. So as we look at these financing approaches, we need to say which are the ones that will ensure that we then involve these communities and they start to become economically active and therefore improve their own livelihoods. So this is the element of trying to not to leave anyone behind, to say let's improve the life of people. Everyone must benefit and their livelihood must then improve. This will link closely to the issues of equality and prosperity, because you then also uplifting the people that were marginalized before or that were not active participants in the economy. So how do we then also bring them around and get them to participate in ecotourism as an example? Also ensure that, as I said, in the wildlife area, there's issues around, they can benefit from hunting, from ranching, also production, secondary products from from hunting or in material that they produce. So how do they also start benefiting from those? There are also elements that we're looking at around bioprospecting. So how do we then ensure that there is access and benefit sharing that will contribute not only to pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals, but also the cosmetic industry as a whole, so that we then improve in that area. The third principle is around increasing capital for resilience and intergenerational equity. So how do we restore our biodiversity? The programs around restoration, programs around research and development, generation of knowledge, so that we know how to better improve and also build technologies that will improve our management of biodiversity and contribute to the economy of the country as a whole. We do have a principle around radical economic transformation in South Africa, and we see biodiversity management as playing a role through the biodiversity economy, and we do have a strategy that we outline and has different activities that I would not be able to speak to all of those in this session, but we are open to have discussions even outside the meeting just to share some of the experiences that we have.
Thanks for that, and I think several of you highlighted this issue of integrated approaches, that is not possible to look at biodiversity as a separate item in the agenda, but it needs to be linked with people, communities, sectors, or even technologies. And I'm turning to our last panelist, about the experience and the challenges that you have confronted with in your attempt to develop these what we call clean production agreements that are a public-private form of partnership. So if you can elaborate a bit more on that, and also some lessons learned that you can share with the audience.
I will speak in Spanish again. So, yo creo que quizá el desafío más importante, lo mencionó hoy día en la mañana Midori en su presentación, tiene que ver con este cambio de mentalidad, este mindset, y particularmente respecto a que hay que imaginar cómo el sector privado se puede involucrar en los objetivos de biodiversidad, o también entender que el sector privado puede tener objetivos de biodiversidad similares a los objetivos del gobierno. O sea, yo creo que cuando uno empieza a buscar oportunidades de alianzas público-privadas, hay que partir reconociendo que es posible que el sector privado más bien quiera sumarse a esta alianza y no ser más bien un enemigo o alguien que va en contra de estos objetivos. Entonces el primer desafío yo lo pondría ahí, en el cambio de mentalidad y abrirse a buscar estas oportunidades de alianza con los privados. Segundo, es buscar efectivamente cuál es la oportunidad. Y la oportunidad, yo diría que tiene dos elementos básicos, que es una oportunidad donde el privado puede ganar. O sea, un privado no va a entrar en una alianza público-privada de forma voluntaria si es que no ve un beneficio, no ve una oportunidad económica fundamentalmente o de reputación, alguna ventaja para su negocio. Y al mismo tiempo el privado también gana, porque el privado ve una oportunidad de avanzar en sus objetivos de política, en este caso aumentar la conservación o incrementar las áreas protegidas, etcétera, etcétera. Y el tercer desafío, o sea, primero el cambio de mentalidad, segundo, efectivamente identificar esta oportunidad de ganancia en que los dos ganan, el Estado y los privados, y tercero, cuando identificamos esta oportunidad, el tercer desafío es construir, es trabajar esa oportunidad en un programa, en una hoja de ruta, en un estándar concreto, específico, con plazos, con resultados. Y lo complejo ahí es que este tipo de alianzas se trabajan de una manera, de forma muy transparente y con mucha confianza entre las partes. A veces el sector privado no se siente cómodo, por ejemplo, negociando un acuerdo con la autoridad ambiental en la mesa, porque han tenido históricamente una relación más bien de un fiscalizador o alguien que aplica la ley versus alguien que la cumple. Entonces, en ese sentido no es fácil este proceso de desarrollo de la alianza y trabajar la oportunidad de una manera más específica para que realmente sea algo que resulte y que genere los resultados que queremos. Nosotros, yo diría que para abordar estos desafíos tenemos un procedimiento bastante estructurado de trabajo, que de alguna manera va yendo etapa por etapa, incluso apoyando las etapas de implementación. O sea, cuando el sector privado decide, en el fondo, incorporar estas buenas prácticas, estas nuevas tecnologías, vamos acompañando ese proceso. Pero fundamentalmente yo diría que lo principal de esto son dos cosas. Uno, que se trabaja no con empresas individuales, sino que más bien trabajamos con sectores, por ejemplo el sector turismo, el sector forestal, o con territorios, por ejemplo las empresas vinculadas a un área protegida, por ejemplo. Y el segundo elemento es que el sector privado es el que invierte. No hay un subsidio público a la coordinación o a las fallas de información. Es como nosotros aportamos recursos para entender mejor el desafío, facilitar el acuerdo, bajar los costos de transacción, pero finalmente los que invierten los recursos son el sector privado. Ahí no hay un elemento de subsidio, por lo tanto yo diría ese es el gran secreto, porque estamos ayudando a las empresas de alguna manera a convencerse de que es un buen negocio para ellos hacer esto. Por lo tanto, abordamos una serie de obstáculos o barreras que permiten demostrar que esto es así y que es también bueno para el gobierno. Tenemos muchísimos ejemplos. Yo prefiero quizás no entrar en algunos ejemplos ahora, pero le abro la posibilidad de que hagamos una mesa de conversación en los próximos días o podemos conversar para contar muchas experiencias exitosas de acuerdo y también experiencias no exitosas, fallas en que no hemos llegado finalmente a un acuerdo y lo cual también es una fuente de aprendizaje muy importante.
Gracias. Many thanks, and I think we have reached our time, and lunch I think is between us and you. So let me first thank our panel here for their contribution and for their insights and reflection. These are our important highlights to start our conference and more a deep dive on the subjects and particularly on public finance. So thank you, all of you, for having joined us and share your experience and reflection. Thank you.
And thanks also to Max for moderating. So thank you very much to our panelists. Indeed, it's time for lunch. Lunch is waiting for you outside. We will start promptly at 2 o'clock for our first set of parallel sessions. those, one group will be in here, the number 4, and the other 3 are on this floor and upstairs. So leave a couple of minutes early so you can divine your way to your rooms. Once you go to the first one, you'll know where they are, but leave some time for that. 2 o'clock promptly, and we won't reconvene in plenary until tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So wish you a good lunch and an enjoyable afternoon in your parallel sessions. I'll put up the schedule for the first set so you can see where they are. Otherwise, you need to use the app. So that's for session 3, stream sessions, and session 4, and I'll leave this up. Join us at lunch outside and see you again at 2.